Hi. Hi, can anyone hear me?
Hi, Faris, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Um, Vixie, that was amazing. That I completely agree with everything that you mentioned. Like I could totally relate to that. Like all the stuff that you were going through in the beginning and stuff. Yeah. And yeah, so we started in 2009. At that time, I had not yet transitioned. So it was mainly as a reaction to the predominantly male punk spaces that we have in Malaysia. Like it's a lot of cis hetero male, a lot of macho aggression going on. So we wanted something, to do something to sort of counteract that. So we formed this band. At that time, society viewed me as a woman, and I played along with that. So because I was also in the process of learning about myself being trans, and so at that time, all our band members were women. Our drummer is trans, and she has since migrated to more LGBT-friendly pastures in Finland. So since then, the band has evolved, but we're all queer. Everyone in the band is queer. And in the beginning, it was just us, a band of people who just wanted to have fun and just sort of like a fuck you to the predominantly male punk scene. So, and it was, we didn't intentionally get involved in activism in the beginning. Like we didn't establish the band as like something like, oh, let's start this activist band and have only activist members. Like we didn't actively do that, but it evolved into that over the years because one of the first songs that we came up with was called Julie, Don't Listen to Them, which was essentially a song about two girls making out and not giving a shit what people think. So and it was very personal to us because at that time, let's see, two of us were queer, openly queer, and that song kind of became, like how the and then like a flock of animals comes to them. So can you hear me? Like my internet connection is unstable. Can you? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that formed like sort of like an animal call. And then we realized that more and more queer people were coming to our shows and then approaching us after the shows and asking us to perform in more queer events like in Malaysia. As you know that Malaysia is not exactly very friendly to the queer community. They don't allow openly queer events. We had Sexuality Merdeka shut down. So we started performing at more and more of these little secret shows and built up a following from there. And then from there, we expanded that following to a more international queer network. So that's how we got to tour Europe and play in other countries as well. So yeah, I think my journey in this band is also about my journey transitioning as well, because I started transitioning in December 2014. So after being in the band for about 5 years, so my transition was very public. And so it inadvertently became a platform for people to come and approach me like after shows and then asking me like, are you the same vocalist? Like, I'm pretty sure the vocalist was a chick the last time I checked. Like those were things that they actually said to me. So yeah, this has created kind of a platform for people to ask questions, and I was very open about answering them because, as Vinci mentioned, like not everybody comes from the same place that I come from, like in terms of access to information, and back then Twitter wasn't a thing, and then so I have to be really, really open about answering all these questions, even though they may use terminology that we deem offensive. So that's, I don't take offense to that because I know that those questions come from a very good place with an intent to learn. So yeah, and in 2019, we were asked to provide the soundtrack to a play called To Which My Brother Laughed, which is a devised theater piece. which was inspired by the essay by The Laugh of the Medusa.
Mm.
And yeah, so that play was a response to the caning of two women in Terengganu in 2018 because they were caught attempting to have sexual relations in a car, and they were subsequently fined and caned. Now, Malaysia has Sharia law, which makes it completely legit by law to cane people for, attempting to have same sex. And so this was, the play is basically a devised theater piece. So over a period of 3 months, everybody gathered together, and the actors, the director, producer, and the band, and we exchanged experiences. Like the director, Tung Jit Yang, would start a conversation in the beginning of every session. He would start a conversation, and we would all give our input based on what the topic was that day. Like it could be a topic of intimacy. It could be a topic of personal experiences growing up, being queer, and so that formed the basis of the soundtrack. And we also contributed our own personal experiences in the series. So the play was basically a series of vignettes, like of different scenarios that you face as a queer person in this country. Yeah. So I'm going to pause for a little bit. So if you want to ask any questions or like.
Thank you for sharing that, Faris. I actually saw, I read about the, To Which My Brother Laughed play after when I read about Shadam. It is fantastic that you're doing that work. And in Malaysia, I've had very interesting experiences the times I've come to Kuala Lumpur. With regards to queerness, I was reading a book with a rainbow cover in the Kuala Lumpur airport, and this random woman came to me and demanded to know why I'm reading that book, and that it was about like being gay in the Muslim world or something like that. And she demanded to know where I bought the book. Did I buy it in Kuala Lumpur? To give her the name of the bookshop so that she can get them banned and things like that. And this was in the airport, which is technically international ground. So it is extremely also brave in many, many ways, of course, to be talking about these issues. What was the audience reaction when you do this particular play, the theater play? What how do have you received any backlash due to that? What has been the general reaction from the people watching? Sorry.
Um, throughout the, I was just thinking of my response. Yeah, throughout the entire process of us coming up with police could come and say that no, actually you can't have this kind of stuff out. So we were always very anxious about that happening. And in fact, I think that the night before opening night, we were informed that the police were keeping an eye on us, special branch police were keeping an eye on us, and that they might send their people over disguised as members of the audience to basically decide whether the play was suitable for the public or not. So that was always a risk. Even before we performed the play to the public, we'd already faced some kind of challenge. But thankfully, nothing happened. Like, I'm not even sure whether special branch even showed up or not. And the audience members were very diverse crowd, coming from all walks of life, basically people who are interested in theater, students. In fact, my two former bosses at the newspaper that I work for, these two middle-aged cis hetero guys, thank you for creating awareness about the situation that you're facing. Oh, is it okay? Like Christopher was just saying, losing me a bit. Like, can you guys hear me? Can you all hear me?
We lost you a little bit in between, but I think you're back on. Now it's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there was a positive reaction as well, but of course, we received a lot of backlash as well through personal messages. We've been banned from Twitter. We're unable to recover our account. That has happened to us 3 times. The 3rd time we're unable to recover our account at all. I'm not sure who reported us, but yeah, we've been banned from Twitter. But there was basically a lot of messages going back and forth through social media accounts, like people who found out about the play, who'd never been to the play, with messages and say things like "fuck you" and stuff. But I don't know whether the "fuck you" was meant in a very friendly way or the "fuck you" was meant in, to hurt and insult. So yeah, it was a mainly positive response that we received. But another reason that the play was created was also because there is no positive representation of the queer community here in Malaysia in the media. Like when I was working in the media, we were issued a directive by the government that we should never ever portray an openly LGBTQ person in a positive light in what we write about them. So this play was also an opportunity for us to take that back and claim the space in the media as our own, to tell our stories instead of having the authorities tell it to everyone else. Conversion therapy is still a legit thing here. And schools, there are campaigns in schools to prevent LGBT behavior, to correct LGBT behavior at grassroots level. That's what they're looking at, yeah. I think one of the religious therapies involves black pepper, lime, and other seasonings, salt. Yeah, so basically one of the conversion therapies involves blowing black pepper into someone's eyes to cure them of the devil that's in their eyes, and to also smack their butt and put black pepper in it to cure them of the devil that's in their butt. Because apparently gayness is caused by the devil in the butt. So this is this is real life, yeah.
Oh no.
So yeah, we also come up with a song about that, about pepper in the butt. Yeah.
After you shared that you were banned from Twitter, I am very tempted to, after the session, go and spam, just like post everything about Shh Diam on Twitter, just to like mess with them. Yeah. we need like guerrilla tactics in tech, to deal with like nonsense from platforms as well. And thank you for sharing this. This cannot be easy to talk about anywhere, for that matter. I mean, I as you were sharing, I was thinking like, in which country would it be easier to talk about things like this? And I realized that even in supposedly progressive liberal countries, it won't be. They don't talk about things like conversion therapy. And even now, how many countries have actually actively banned it, right? And the reason why I'm pointing this out is that because Western countries very simply point towards Asian countries and Muslim countries, saying that they are the conservatives, they are the homophobic ones, whereas it's not like it's better in the other in their countries either. And are there any questions from the participants? Anyone has any questions? I You can just unmute and ask if you'd like.
I actually have a question.
Questions.
So, I mean, it sounds like this sort of the censorship has been a case in Malaysia for a while, or this is what I know. And for those of you that have followed the news a little bit, so Hong Kong passed the national security law, and it's very vague, and I think everyone's still trying to grapple with what that means, or what could be under a threat to national security. So I think my question to you is just how do you live like under a state where media is censored? Like, where do you find the cracks, I think, to make your art and to put your message out there?
So far, from the very beginning, we've just had, fuck it, let's just do it. This is art. And the attitude that we've adopted. about horses. We have songs about getting stoned, things that people can relate to. Um, and we've just adopted this approach that if anything happens, it happens. Like, we can't be scared. We can't afford to be scared for the rest of our lives, because we're thinking about, what about that queer person in a little village in a rural area who has no access to any information and no access to the communities that we have access to, living in urban Malaysia. What about them? Like, who can they talk to? Like, what can they listen to inspire them, and just to just to let them know that they're not alone. There was this one incident where a friend of ours traveled to a rural area in Sarawak, and he came back and told us that he'd met someone there in a longhouse who listened to us. And this person told him that our songs made her feel less alone. It made her feel like there was something out there for her. And that is why we do what we do. Like, we're not like super famous or super rich people, like living rock star lives, but this is, and our music is entirely self-funded, but this is why we do what we do. It's not easy, but we hope that things get better. And like Malaysia, over the past few years, we've changed government so many times. Like, I don't know, like, but and each time there's a shift. Like, we're always like, okay, maybe it's better. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe they have spaces for open dialogue now and be more accepting of the queer community. But the anti-LGBT rhetoric has been like transferred from government to government, because it's one way to keep the votes from the Malay Muslim majority who are afraid of the LGBT community, because they think that we are, pedos. Yeah.
Of course, you need to find someone to villainize, and this is a very easy, low-hanging fruit kind of a target to catch hold of the LGBTQ community. Yeah, it's like in India, it's about like people who are anti-national. Who are anti-national? Who is not? No one knows. But basically, anyone can be clustered under that.